Welcome home. We are WNST. Tassel, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We're positively getting back out on the road. We're going to be Fleet Week on Friday, and then next week I'm wearing my Pappas shirt. That's 2 weeks from now. It'll be a Costas next Thursday before the Orioles-Yankees game from 1 to 4. And then on the 25th, we will be at Pappas in Parkville, the original world-famous crab cakes. I'm wearing my Pappas shirt. All are brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I had to learn this the right way. It's Gold Rush Sevens doubler, not Gold Rush double sevens. I got that wrong. So I'm giving these away either way. They are lucky. I had a $20 winner over at Coco's on Wednesday. Great conversations at Coco's. A bunch of good friends stopped by. Rasig and Max Weiss stopped by. Tom Pierce from Classic 5 Golf, who he's a Phillies fan. Speaking of Phillies fan, I used to be one. This guy, sister married into a family full of them. He's about to become an uncle squared this weekend, just in time for the Philadelphia Phillies to get here. He was at most of the games of this series, but was running around with the Ravens earlier this week. And as you know, they only allow WNST one credential for one person, so we didn't get to cover everything this week. But Luke is overworked and, as always, ready to deliver on all things Orioles. Big week, man. This Braves thing, you can't sweep everybody, dude. I mean, everybody wants a broom. It's like the baseball team's never supposed to lose when they're playing good teams. If we get together next week and they don't lose to the Phillies and the Yankees, they've done something. But this is as good a week of baseball as they're going to find, competitive-wise, until they probably get to October.
No question about it. I think there's always this sense of looking ahead to October. We've talked about this with the Ravens. January. It's all about January. It's becoming more and more that way for the Orioles. But I think this is a week to make sure you're not missing the forest for the trees, in the sense of this is the kind of week, this weekend series specifically with the Phillies coming in, is the kind of series that Orioles fans could only dream about for a really, really long time. There's nostalgia, 1983. Which obviously holds a special place in my heart because I was born 2 months before, or 2 weeks before the Orioles last won a World Series. And as you mentioned, I mean, there's the local connection with Philadelphia just being right up the road. But you're talking about two of the three best teams in baseball. And then when the Orioles are done with the Phillies, they'll go to the Bronx and play the other of those three best teams. It really is exciting. It's fun. I mean, when I saw the pitching matchups, and I talked to you a couple days ago about this, I think we were just texting about it. When I saw what the pitching matchups could be for this weekend series, which we already know Saturday and Sunday was announced about a week and a half ago that they were sellouts. I'm sure there are going to be plenty of Philadelphia fans. Friday nights, I would assume, is at least very close to a sellout, if not a sellout, by the time we get to first pitch. There's so much excitement with this series because these are such good baseball teams. I was looking at the numbers going into this game, going into this series opener. Orioles, first in Major League Baseball in runs per game. The Phillies, second in Major League Baseball in runs per game. And oh, by the way, the Yankees, third in Major League Baseball in runs per game, which obviously the Yankees will follow. Runs allowed per game, Orioles are third best. Phillies, fourth best. Yankees, first best. I mean, these are the three best teams in baseball right now, record-wise. And there's nothing fluky about it whatsoever. It's not as though any of these teams are miraculously winning a ton of one-run games, or you look at the run differential and say, well, that doesn't look like a team that should be 20 plus over 500 in mid-June. These teams are all legit. And I think this is there can be the sense of, what if this doesn't go well? Hey, October's still 3.5 months away, regardless of what happens over the next week. So there'll be a range of potential outcomes. To your point, if they sweep the Phillies and they sweep the Yankees, the Orioles will be the undisputed best team in baseball, perception-wise. If they lose 2 out of 3,
there haven't been many weeks that they have the opportunity to establish that in June. Nobody wants to be the best team in June, but you want to be the best team in June. It's like being 8-0 in the NFL. Nobody wants to carry that around on Halloween, but it's fun when you are.
Right. It's fun. And that's where my whole point here is embrace how fun and how unique this setup is. I mean, this is Major League Baseball. The only thing that they've messed up on is none of these Orioles-Phillies games are nationally televised games. I mean, why not on Fox? Why not on Sunday Night Baseball? So that's the only thing that I would say. But, I mean, it's going to be exciting. And this is fun. It's fun. The idea that Kyle Bradish is matching up against Ranger Suarez on Friday night is fun. My goodness, on Sunday, we're getting Corbin Burns versus Zach Wheeler. It doesn't get any better than that in modern baseball. So embrace that. Yeah, it's going to be tough. And guess what? Even if the unthinkable would happen and they would get swept, they lose all 6 of these games, the season is still far from over and they're still right, just, right around 20 games over 500. Yeah, I guess they'd be a few under at that point, a few under 20, but they're in a great spot, regardless of what happens over the next week. And the Phillies are too, and the Yankees are too. So let's see how it turns out. It's a measuring stick week for all these teams. And I think that's something that comes with trepidation, but on the flip side, it's an opportunity. And I'm looking forward to this. As much as you and I talked about that Orioles Yankees series back in late April and May, and I was dismissive about it being big just because it's late April and early May. It's still only mid-June. There's still so much season to go. Nothing is decided this week. To your point, if you're the best team in baseball in mid-June, what's that get you? Nothing. But it's a great opportunity to see some great baseball teams match up here over the next week. And who knows? Well, let's not exactly count these guys out in terms of, they could handle their business and be the best team in baseball as we are talking a week from now. So let's just enjoy this, because this is as relevant as it gets when you're talking about hosting the best team in the National League and then immediately following that with an off day built in there finally for the Orioles on Monday, but they go to the Bronx then and they face the best team in the American League as it stands right now. But the Orioles are right there. There's nothing about this series that fans should be fearing by any stretch of the imagination, other than just the fact that these are great teams and it's baseball and you don't know exactly how it's going to go. But the Phillies are banged up right now. I mean, Trey Turner's still on the IL. Brandon Marsh went on the IL about a week and a half ago, and JT Realmuto, their star catcher, is sidelined with a knee injury right now, having surgery for it, or had surgery for it. So they're not at full strength. We know the Orioles aren't at full strength with some of their pitching, but it's a great baseball team. So you can tell I'm excited. I really genuinely am excited about this as someone who gets to go to games every day. And I try not to take that for granted, but there are plenty of series where you just kind of, you watch the games and, it is what it is. And then you move on. But this is a really special weekend. This is a really special week coming up. And I just think everyone should embrace that as an awesome opportunity for this young team, as good as they've been, to see how they match up against the mighty Phillies, who went to a World Series a couple years ago, were in the NLCS last year, and to see how they match up going against the Yankees in the Bronx, knowing that the Yankees have played such great baseball now for the last month and a half, really since the last time they played in Baltimore 6 weeks ago.
One thing about the series is Burns won't go against the Yankees, right? So you say, well, what's more important, this or that? They're all important, the games that are in front of you. And whether it's important or not, we're going to pretend it is, because we've never had anything like this. And I've been on the air 32 years, man. And I remember the Orioles played the Braves in the late 90s, maybe 97 or something like that, when they switched over. And it was a big deal that Messina was hitting against the Braves and American League hitters hitting and, across leagues and all of that stuff. Dude, that was 27 years ago, whatever. I don't really remember any series or group of series or week or two in June for this franchise under Angelos ownership where it mattered or could have mattered. So to your point, you could only dream about these series. Yeah, like I forgot that you could have big series in June, right? And once we have them, to your point, you sort of pissed on it last month, and I'll piss on it today and just say, if they ever do 1-5 the next 6 games, their toes are tapping. The Phillies are in another league. It's more of a measurement. It's more for fun than it is. And same thing with the Yankees. I mean, with this wild card, it is all more for fun, because if you're alive in October, you're alive. So you're not walking the tightrope the way maybe you would have 30 years ago before all of this existed with a June series. And also more opportunities to beat teams in your division that don't exist anymore. You don't even play the Yankees enough for them to be in the way, or to beat them enough for them to beat us enough to knock us out of the playoffs or anything like that. So, but full crowds, the mojo of it being summer and the arrival of the team being good. I mean, not that we should say that after they won a division last year, but there's plenty of empty seats. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon. And this weekend, there's no empty seats because the Phillies are going to bring 30,000 people, maybe more down here Saturday. So the way it's sold out way ahead of time, and the Orioles fans not. Why would the Orioles fans get a jump start on the Phillies series? They would want a jump start on the Yankees series if they were buying tickets in advance. So I am a little worried that it's going to be a road game this weekend amidst this prosperity. There's nothing worse than being that team. You win a division, you're awesome, and you get shouted down in your own stadium by Phillies fans. That being said, Rodriguez has a chance to go out and pitch. So does Burns, and make this thing a celebratory thing for whatever 24,000 Oriole fans that are there, because there'll be plenty of Oriole fans there this weekend. But it's not going to feel like a playoff game against the A's where everybody in the stadium is going to be an Oriole fan. It's going to be a real mixed bag in sort of a non-football way. Even when the Cowboys fans come in and take over, there's 10,000 of them and 60,000 of us. That'll be a little different this weekend. I think there's going to be a different atmosphere for the crowd this weekend than anything we see. First off, it's full, and it's not opening day where everybody's drunk and hanging out and walking around trying to find warmth. It's going to be hot as hell, and it's going to be packed to the gills for a big baseball game with big pitching, with big moments, and there's going to be a lot of noise because it's not going to be quiet when the Phillies hit a home run. It's going to be competitive, I guess is what I'm saying, in a way that baseball stadiums aren't usually half and half. This weekend is going to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously Yankees fans travel. I mean, we've talked about it over the last couple of years. Orioles fans have low-key traveled better at some of these, when you're talking about when you go to Wrigley, or obviously the Trop, with that being, St. Petersburg being not that far away from Sarasota. Orioles.
Well, there's also 5,000 fans that care at all about the race. So when you bring 3,000, you're the crowd,
Right. So yeah, they're absolutely are going to be Philadelphia fans there. And by the way, they're going to spend a lot of money downtown, and that's a good thing.
Fleet Week, look up, you Philadelphians, look up, you cheesesteak eaters.
So a big weekend for the city. But yeah, I mean, and look, that will anger some Orioles fans, and I get that. And believe me, you always prefer having a stadium full of only.
By the way, it used to anger me. Where's our local pride? Get out some. And then Angelo's took over, and then I'm a chump on the radio even saying stuff like give him your money. Like, people stopped going forever. Now they have to get them back. That's Greg Bader's charge. That's what they're trying to do right now, is get people back. The place is full this weekend. There's nothing to say. I'm just, for people going down there this weekend, I have a feeling when there's a double off the wall for the Phillies, you're going to think you're in South Philly. I mean, I have no doubt about that because the thing's sold out. It's not sold out full of Oriole fans. That's the uniqueness of this series. It's the same way when the Phillies play the Mets. When the Phillies play the Mets in Philly, there's 10,000 Mets fans there. There just are.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that can make for, if you get really competitive back and forth games, that can actually make for a really fun atmosphere when you think about it in those terms. But yeah, Philly fans travel. I mean, newsflash, that's not exactly a shock right there.
By the way, did you hear about the Brazil thing with the football thing?
What about it?
So I had Tom Pierce on this week. Now, Tom's Classic 5 golf, and Tom's a Philly guy. I don't hold that against him. I was nice to him. You can hear it on the air this week. We were over Coco's on Wednesday having a crab cake. Still got a crab cake downstairs for my wife from Coco's. Thank you. So, we got talking about this, and, the London series was last weekend, right? So all these Philadelphia fans went over there. I had a whole bunch of them on my timeline that went because I'm connected to these people. Then I had other Phillies fans that went to Boston to see them play, and they're a little bit jet lagged, I think, at this point. But the Phillies, the Eagles, I should say, and we think about the Eagles traveling because they travel pretty well too. They're going down to Brazil. They're playing the Packers. Apparently, you can't wear the color green in the stadium. Do you know about this?
I did hear about that.
It's a gang thing. It's a stadium thing. It's a wearing the rival team. It's like the Steelers wearing black and gold, even though Towson and UMBC wear black and gold here. There's a weird thing going on with those Eagles fans going down to Brazil. Anyway, I just figured I'd throw that out because we don't get to see these Philly people. I was with them all last weekend. I was up in Philadelphia for Tommy Conwell, and the Phillies are a real thing up there. Like, you know what I mean? They and I've talked to Tom about this. Your brother-in-law is a Phillies fan. They've won enough the last 15 years that everybody has Phillies gear. I mean, I saw a Chase Utley dog the other day. I saw a dog in Wayne, Pennsylvania in a little Chase Utley 26 outfit, powder blue with the bubble P, the whole deal. So there is, they've been winning up there while we've been down here chumping around playing football. Like, you know what I mean? The baseball team is a real concern in Philadelphia in a way it wasn't at the turn of the century when they stunk after Kruk and Hollins and Schilling and all those guys left. They stunk forever. But 15 years ago, they picked it up, and that's part and parcel of them bringing 25, 30,000 people down here this weekend is they sell a lot of tickets up there. They're a big brand up there, and this is where I get my monocles out for Mr. Rubenstein and the Whistler. Um, this is what you want your brand to be.
Yeah.
You know, when we play Philadelphia and we've won a couple World Series 10 years from now, we want to be the fans that go up there with 30,000 because that's how you grow your fan base, winning. And the Phillies have done that. They really have. I mean, talk about the Eagles brand. It's the NFL and the Sixers and the Flyers. The Phillies are the most ubiquitous brand in Philadelphia. If you're going to talk about wearing something that says I'm from Philadelphia, the P says that to me. And it's winning, winning, and winning. And we haven't had enough of that here. I love the Phillies brand because of that. I hope they bring the Fanatic down this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I still, my brother-in-law would probably still tell you the Eagles. And look, I mean, the Eagles have won a Super Bowl fairly recently. Obviously, they went to another Super Bowl. So, but your point is well taken, and I agree with it. I mean, that brand has taken massive strides. I mean, obviously, they won the World Series in '08, went to another World Series in '09. They did have a lean stretch in between that era and what we've seen the last
They
few
lost
years.
for a minute, yeah.
Yeah, and really badly for a couple years. But you know,
that's how you get Adley Rutschman.
Yeah, exactly. Certainly. But they signed Bryce Harper. That changes things, right? Some
but
of the good
their ownership is beloved in Philly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
they spent a lot of money.
My point being, nobody's ever loved the Sixers owner in Philly, right? Like, so I'm just saying, when you love the owner and you believe in what the organization's doing, and you put that hat on, or you put that shirt on, and you really believe, dude, come on. We went through this last year. Orioles fans haven't put their stuff on and believed until maybe last August.
Yeah.
Ever. Now, Orioles fans believe now. We all believe they can win the World Series, but nobody's put a hat on believing they can win, or believing in management, or believing they're going to sign Adley Rutschman, or believing things are going to stay together. Really believing. We haven't had the ability to believe in the ownership here. I still don't. You have a press pass. I don't. I don't believe in the ownership. I think I don't. Greg Bader's running the place. So believing in it, buying into it, when I talk to Phillies fans, it's very clear they love the ownership. They even learned to love Bryce Harper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bryce Harper's a phenomenal talent, and you sign him to that long of a deal, he's going to be there for a long time. Although those deals also on the back end of them oftentimes don't look so good, but lots of great talent on that team, free agents, but also some homegrown guys, guys that they've developed and come up through their system.
Great
and
pitching right now.
They're really, really, really good. I mean, they just are. Now, the one thing I'll point out, and I wanted to point this out, and this is why I said this isn't just a litmus test for the Orioles. It's a litmus test for the Phillies. It'll be a litmus test for the Yankees when the Orioles go to the Bronx there next week. Measuring stick, barometer, however you want to describe it. All these teams kind of want to see how they measure up. But one thing about the Phillies, and this is including this series against the Red Sox, where they scuffled a little bit. To your point, maybe a little bit of jet lag, or as I mentioned, they're a little banged up. They're missing some guys in their lineup right now, but they have only played, entering Friday, 12 games all year against teams that are currently above 500. Now, they're 8-4, but 12 games all year against teams currently over 500. They've had a very favorable schedule to this point in the season. In contrast, the Orioles are 20-8 against teams currently over 500. The Yankees 19-11. So the Orioles and the Yankees have been much more battle tested in that way. And these teams playing the AL East has been better than the NL East, top to bottom, when you consider how lousy Miami is, and knowing that the Mets aren't very good and the Nationals are better than they've been, but still not very good overall. So, for the Phillies, this is absolutely a chance for them to come in and flex their muscles as the NL's best team if they can knock off one of the two best teams in the AL. So this is fun. I mean, it really is, to your point, and I can't stress this enough. Whatever happens this week, even if they do go 1-5, If the Orioles go 1-5 over the next 6 games, guess what? They're still 18 games over 500 in mid-June. They're still in really good shape. They're still the wild card. They're still, the Yankees wouldn't run away with it under that scenario either. So just let this play out, embrace it, enjoy it, because to your point, other than, I think back to the Rays series last September, that 4-game set when they came into Baltimore in mid-September, which was huge. But we also know the Rays aren't the Yankees in terms of prestige, aren't even the Phillies in terms of prestige. And with the Phillies bringing fans in here, it's going to be a combative crowd in terms of back and forth. And yeah, Bryce Harper hits a home run in the first inning off Kyle Bradish. It's going to be, I don't know what number will be, 15,000,
they're going to be ringing the bell is what that's what they do. They
it's
ring
gonna be loud.
the bell, don't they, up there?
Yeah, no question about it. But again, beat them, play good games, have it be back and forth, and then it's an unbelievable atmosphere over the course of the weekend. So, and to the point I made earlier, they're going to spend a lot of money downtown, which is a good thing for the city in and of itself. So, I mean, like I said, I sound almost giddy talking about this because I'm excited about it. And again, it's not so much the ramifications.
When's the last time?
It's just
15 years. When did we play a game in June that first play? Like what?
I mean,
you said only could dream about it. This is a dream for this franchise.
And they've played some, I don't want to say critical series, because again, how critical is it really in June, knowing there's so much baseball left, but just in terms of perception. Like I said, I just laid out numbers that tell you these are, with apologies to Cleveland, who's also right there in that picture, these are the 3 best teams in baseball right now, record-wise, runs per game and runs allowed per game wise. I mean, I just read off the numbers to you going into this series. They're all right there in terms of pitching and offense. So in the aggregate, they're all about the same. That as far as their makeup, they're all built a little bit differently. Obviously, the Phillies have some big-time free agents, pitching and hitting wise, and we know the Yankees do. The Orioles are much, much, much more homegrown and only have a couple hired guns in there, namely Corbin Burns via trade. But in the aggregate, they're all really, really good. So this is just, I mean, like I said, the only thing Major League Baseball failed in doing was not putting Orioles Phillies in a national TV game or two this weekend. But all eyes in Baltimore and Philadelphia are going to be on what's happening at Camden Yards all weekend. And then you'll have a brief chance to take a breath, and then you go to the Bronx for 3. So I mean, it's fun.
If anybody's watching out on the YouTube or watching on our WNST TV channel, and you follow us on social media, you should follow Luke at Baltimore Luke, no matter what. Don't worry about following me. I just put up pictures of rock stars and stuff. I'm going to take over here, Luke, and we're going to do a little throwback here on my 1983. I was telling a story to Tom Pierce that I had a Pentax 150 camera that my parents got me for my birthday. It was my 15th birthday. That week was game 1 was not my 15th birthday. It was game 3. Game 1 was Tuesday. Game 2 was Wednesday. Game 3 was on the 14th Friday. So the 11th, the 12th, the 14th, 15th, and we won the World Series on the 16th, which was Sunday. You were born on October 2nd, correct?
2nd, correct.
So you were born on a Sunday. 2 weeks before. You were born like the week Tito Landrum hit the home run.
I was born, I think it was the regular season finale. That day.
Okay. Yeah. So this picture here is taken on the 11th of October, which was Tuesday night, game 1. This was a night when Joe Morgan, who's stretching out here in this picture, would hit the home run to beat the Orioles. But Bo Diaz, Sarge, Mike Schmidt, Pete Rose, Terry Holland, Todd Caribbean Cruz in these pictures. And here's the Fanatic and the Oriole Bird wrestling at second base.
That's great.
You see that full crowd in the outfield? The weirdest part is there's like little spots of orange. It's a couple of orange, a lot of white paneled hats. You can see Oriole hats were big. You could not buy an Oriole jersey at the games at East Point Mall in 19. No one had jerseys. No one had to see a guy with an orange jacket out here in the outfield.
Yeah.
Your dad, there's your dad there, the usher. I see the outfit, but that's the only orange we had. No red. It's crazy how different sports is 40 years later. There's a very young, svelte Oriole owner, Cal Ripken,
MVP that year.
First base. The great Bowie Kuhn and Yvonne De Jesus playing catch here in the background during the stretch out. The Philly fanatic under the John 360 sign in right field, having some fun with the cops. Cop has a bat on the Philly fanatic, which is exactly what every good work for that Baltimore police officer. I was so close to the dugout before first pitch. I had pictures into their dugout. I went down to the dugout with my little camera. Little Nestor, I need to take pictures. Show him a Luke on my radio show when I'm a big radio star 40 years from now. And there's you could see it was raining a little bit that night. You see the water down on the field. There's the late, great Venezuelan. I have to point that out for the Whistler, that this is a real Venezuelan, Bo Diaz, who perished many years later in a very tragic accident. So those are my 1983 Philadelphia Phillies Orioles World Series pictures that I treasure and cherish. And you know what, Luke? The strangest thing about all this is you're a little younger than me. Now, you know, I started going to games in 73, Oriole games in 73. I have the picture of the Louis Aparicio, the ball. Like, my parents had a little Instamatic for that. I don't think I ever carried a camera into Memorial Stadium ever again in my life. Like, I played baseball there. I played a pitch, hit, and run there. My dad didn't take a camera to take pictures of it. We're just different these days. These are literally the only Memorial Stadium pictures I own that I took ever with a camera. I have some football pictures. Later that year, we played the Packers that year, in a year when the Ravens, the Colts didn't win a game that year. But I took some pictures in 82 with my Pentax camera. I have pictures of James Lofton and Chester Markle and Lynn Dickey, of all things, and Randy McMillan in Colts gear. But we didn't take cameras. So that's all I got. And I would tell you that there are plenty of people out there in the listening audience, because I've met them, who went to one of the World Series games in 83. Like, you didn't, but your dad did. Maybe your dad didn't.
No.
Your dad didn't, did he? Your dad stayed home with you and skipped the World Series, didn't he?
One of my most treasured stories, and really a reflection of his character. Although I certainly wouldn't have judged him, and I honestly, in the
You're
many
mad at
years,
him for not going. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always said to him, why didn't you go? And
well, we'll play in another World Series, Luke. Yeah.
And,
okay,
and
Dad.
here's what's funny. And I'll add a little bit to that, because it's just, since you brought it up, a lot of people would hear that and say, well, that's, that Mike Jones was a good man. He stayed home with his wife, who had just given birth. No, my mom was upstairs in the bedroom with her mom. My mom's parents were, I think, still staying, because they were retired at that point and everything. But no, my dad was downstairs with me and my grandfather, his father-in-law, watching the World Series on TV. So it wasn't so much.
He insisted on watching the game with you, is what you're saying.
He wanted to watch it with me, even though I was literally 2 weeks old as Cal Ripken caught the final out. The line drive and McGregor's hugging Dempsey and everything happening at the vet. But yeah, he did not work the World Series, which I think he's, to this day, if he were here, I'd say you should have worked one game at least. That would have been okay. And he would have made good money too, because tips would have been amazing for a World Series game. But yeah, that's the legend of Mike Jones right there.
Look, I want to show you one picture here. This is the most important picture in the whole thing, right? This is the picture of me in the Phillies dugout, like putting the camera into because I cared so much more about the Phillies than I did the Orioles in 83. And I was 15. I love the Orioles. I mean, I went to every game at 79. I'm an Oriole guy, but I fell in love with the Phillies. My father, my paternal father, came back to America in 1981 and was friends with Trio and Bo Diaz. My father was Venezuelan, obviously. And he came back and took me and Kevin Eck up to Philadelphia in the summer of 1981 before the strike. I have all the ticket stubs. I saw Nolan Ryan pitch for the Astros. And I saw the Expos play. The Expos and the Astros in the summer of 81. My father, Nestor Sr., took me and Kevin and one of his baseball friends up to Philadelphia for 3 days. We stayed at the Stadium Hilton across the street, and we went to every game. And my father had kind of abandoned me. It was one of the last times I saw my real father. But we went up to Philadelphia, and my father was in the clubhouse. Nestor Sr. was in the clubhouse. I have autographs from every Philadelphia Philly player on Stadium Hilton, like the little tab desk notes thing that you would have in a
Hmm.
hotel room that says Stadium Hilton on it. I have sheets of paper. They're the size of this lottery ticket. It was a little notepad. And I have Mike Schmidt, Bob Boone, Manny Trio, Gary Matthews, Paul Owens, like all of their autographs. Schmidt and Rose specifically as Hall of Famers. No Joe
Right.
Morgan, though. I guess he didn't see Joe Morgan that day. But in 81, so my dad and I went, I spent 3 days there. We came back home. We took the train. We came back home, and Kevin remained an Oriole fan, and I went out and bought Philly stuff in 81. So I have a Philly Bubble P hat. Richie Ashburn was a giveaway in 81. I still have that hat. You've probably seen that hat.
Hmm.
So I was a Phillies fan during that era in 81 and 82, became a Mike Schmidt fan. I collected baseball cards. The Schmidt rookie was the rage in 73 and all that stuff. And they were such a good team. They were a team full of these exotic, and this speaks to interleague play. This
I was
speaks to
just
me
going to
being an
say
old guy. They
there
were
was always,
exotic.
yeah.
Watching Pete Rose, all of the years in the 80s in the Big Red Machine and Joe Morgan, watching Carlton and Schmidt, thinking Philly was a million miles away, and then realizing you could get there in an hour and a half when you're 13. I didn't know any of this. This opened the door for all of the Rush concerts, Journey, all the concerts I went to in 84, 85, 86 when I got a driver's license was because my dad took me to Philadelphia, and I fell in love with it because the Fanatic was funny. The Bird wasn't. I got squirted one night because I said the Bird wasn't funny enough. It wasn't nearly as entertaining as the Fanatic because he's not as a mascot. And the fake grass, the artificial turf, the round stadium, the fact that Gary Carter, Warren Cromartie, Andre Dawson were playing, the fact that Nolan Ryan, who I'd seen pitch as a kid as a California Angel, but he was in the National League. You couldn't see these players, and there was something just incredibly exotic about it. My dad, we even had the antenna on the roof that could get channel 17 that get Phillies games in 81, 82, 83 because they were great. They were great. I loved baseball. So it didn't matter baseball, but my love of the Phillies and my love of baseball and my love of National League baseball, and I would go every single time the Dodgers would play in the 80s in Philly. I would go see Steve Garvey, Ron Say, Davey Lopes play. I would go up every time Doc Gooden pitched. I would go see Doc Gooden pitch against and Darryl Strawberry and Ray Knight and in 86, 85, 86, 87. So I went to Philly a ton. So, I mean, I have a lot of experience going to the Phillies games. And, I had one Philly. I had a Philly hat and a shirt, but I wasn't like a geeked up fan. And I sort of let that thing go. When Kurt Schilling started pitching for them, I went up there a ton to see Tony
Right.
Gwynn play. But this is all pre interleague play. And
Yeah.
interleague plays changed that. I mean, there was no way to see the Orioles play the Phillies in the regular season back then.
Right, exactly. I mean that is the one thing that's lost, and it doesn't take anything away from this series in general. But yeah, that mystique that was lost at this point 27 years ago. I mean, that was the same. I didn't go to Philly very often. I think I saw a game at the Vet in 91 or 92, against the Braves actually when the Braves were at their absolute best. So that was fun. But for me, it was, my mom's dad, my grandfather was a Phillies fan. He was born in 1923. The
Oh, so
Orioles didn't
little
exist.
8-year-old Luke Jones went to the Vet
Yeah.
with dad?
Yeah, him.
Dude, you've never
My
told me this story. 15
I
years,
mean,
I've never heard this story.
it was, there was nothing all that terribly memorable about it, but it was just fun. Like it was a chance to go to the Vet. But for me, when I see the Phillies, you know what I think of? Harry Callis and Whitey Ashburn on TV or on the radio. My grandfather, whose house I now live in. I mean, it's my own home, but Sunday dinners at my grandparents' house, and the Orioles were either on WMAR or the Phillies were on channel 15. I can't remember what the call letters were at that point in time. And the other game would be on the radio. So we would watch the Orioles and listen to the Phillies, or watch the Phillies and listen to the Orioles every Sunday. I mean, that was the Sunday sound. My Sundays as a child, going to church and then going to Grandma and Pop-Pop's for Sunday dinner and watching the Orioles or listening to the Orioles and watching the Phillies and listening to the Phillies. So I have absolutely an affinity for, and
It's crazy
regardless.
because, my cousins lived in Newark, Delaware, right? Like
Mhm.
right at 896. We always went up there on Sundays because that's what you did for, when
Yeah.
you visited with my mother's sister lived in Newark. She had 6 kids. they were all Philly people. They were all
Yeah.
Philly people. You know, every time I'm up there, the Phillies game would be on a Sunday afternoon. So I'm familiar with watching Phillies baseball. You know,
And
in the late 70s, early 80s, when I was a kid, going up there, the Phillies game, and I love that. I'm like, let's go to Aunt Clara's. The Phillies are on. Let's go watch them play. You know, that was
right.
more exotic than watching the Orioles in 1982 when I'm 12 years old, 13 years old. You know,
Well, and there's just that mystique that, that it's exotic, that novelty. Not even a novelty because they just didn't play each other unless, spring training, who cares about that? But you'd see these players in the All-Star game. So you might have a matchup. Jim Palmer might face someone for the Phillies in the All-Star game, but beyond that, I mean, the only scenario was the World Series. So yeah, my grandfather was a Phillies fan and maintained that loyalty as his National League team. But then when the Orioles, of course, Major League Baseball returned to Baltimore in 1954, the Orioles were his American League team. So we watched the Phillies all the time. We watched the Orioles all the time. I mean, obviously my allegiance was Orioles and my dad's, but there was no reason to dislike the Phillies. Heck, they beat them in 1983, so there was no reason to dislike the Phillies. So, I mean, that was always so fun. And again, to your point, talking about those National League players, that there was so little player movement, even in the 90s. Okay, free agency had become more of a thing, but it still wasn't as frequent seeing players change teams as you see today. So yeah, that was your chance to see guys in the National League, or that rare instance where Curt Schilling gets traded and suddenly he's pitching for the Phillies a couple years later. So yeah, I mean, that was so much fun. That mystique was lost a long time ago. I mean, now you play every National League team. You play every team at least one series every year now. So that gets lost a little bit, but when you've got this local flavor, when you
is
have
John
these,
Kruk fun to listen to on television?
he
I
is
haven't.
a riot. He is a
Everybody
riot. He's
talks about him. I've never
hilarious.
watched the Phillies broadcast.
He is hilarious. Kruk's great.
Let me tell you my John Kruk story. You ready for this? In '93 All-Star game, I always tell you about this because it's the day I met Michael Jordan that day, right? Barry Bonds is in the locker room early in the morning. Ken Griffey and I had a nice the home run derby day. I used to go to players, and if you saw the 25th anniversary documentary, you would hear the Bill Murray bumper.
Mm-hmm.
I would have them do bumpers for me. I mean, BJ Suroff did a bumper for me. Frank Thomas, Juan Gonzalez. I mean, all these guys did bumpers for me back in the day. So the All-Star team coming in, man, I had to get Tony Gwynn to do a bumper for me. I think he might have already had done one for me out in San Diego. But so John Kruk walks in. So the Phillies that were Kruk, Hollins, trying to think, there was another Philly that was on the
Darren
All-Star
Dalton?
team, the 93 All-Star team.
Darren Dalton?
Dutch Dalton, thank you.
Yeah.
So Kruk comes in 10 o'clock in the morning, home run derby day, looking completely disheveled. Everybody else is like suit and tie. It's the All-Star. Kruk comes in looking like a bag man. His shirt's all hanging out, like literally like Pigpen. And he comes in, and I don't know him from Boo. And I would always use that I knew Schilling as sort of like, hey, I'm a friend of Kurt and Shonda's. Can you do this for me? And a lot of guys will look at me and say, you're a friend of Kurt. I don't want to talk to you. And like, I thought they were kidding with me. I mean, when Terry Francona said that to me in Milwaukee, I was like, did I screw up? And then he got a warm smile, like Kurt wins games, but we don't like Kurt. I used to like Kurt. Then Donald Trump happened. But in regard to Kruk, I went up to him and I said, hey, can you do a bumper for me? He says, I don't even know how to read, dude. That's what he said to me. When I handed him the script, I don't even know how to read, dude.
That's the exact thing you hear on the
Now,
broadcast.
that's better
now.
than Manny Ramirez saying, I don't speak English.
Yeah. No, Kruk is a character. I mean, he's fun.
He did it
He's
for
really
me.
fun.
I have a John Kruk bumper. He did it for me. He was funny.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, those that 1993 Phillies team. Look at the personalities on that team. I mean, my goodness. So I mean,
We
this
haven't
this is
mentioned Dykstra.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, this is that it brings it back to today where you and I are talking about this. Obviously, we have some affinity for the Phillies that other people in Baltimore wouldn't necessarily have, and that's fine. But personal connections.
I wonder how many
It's
Orioles
just,
fans have been to a Phillies game.
I would hope Citizens Bank Ball. That's a good park. I mean, go see a game there. I mean,
Easy to get to.
easy to get to, expensive right now because of the demand. I mean, you look at their attendance. I mean, they're right up there with the Dodgers and anyone else you talk about as far as attendance. I mean,
They
it's
have
a tough
won the
ticket.
hearts of their community, and
It's
that's
a tough
where I go
ticket.
back to the
Yeah.
beginning of this. The reason there's 30,000 people here this weekend from Philadelphia is they like this team.
By the way, we didn't mention anything about Thursday's game with the Orioles. Did you see what the announced attendance was for Thursday's game? A day game? 33,000. And look, I was at Ravens the last day of minicamp. I did not make it for that game, but that kind of shocked me. You know, I figured, okay, somewhere in the low 20s or something like that. It's a weekday afternoon game, but there were quite a few people that I think, either played hooky from work or, just
How much
cut
is it to
out
get
early.
in Saturday for the game right now?
I'm sure I know I
It's
was
a
talking,
$100 ticket on Saturday at Camden Yards.
and
It's an
that's to sit
opening
on the
day
roof.
kind of ticket.
Yeah. I was talking to more than a few people over the last week who were all talking about going to this, whether it was someone I know that's a Philly fan or, just
4
Orioles
o'clock
fans.
game. You live in Philly. You got all day to get down here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you can get down here and you can even, bend a few back, have a few.
And then drive home at 9 o'clock at night and get home. Like,
Sure.
if we're playing up there a 4 o'clock game, that's easy peasy. You leave the house,
Absolutely.
go up, get a cheesesteak, come back.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be plenty of Philadelphia fans here, and look, spend your money, spend your money.
If you want to go, tickets are $7 on June 24th against the Guardians. How about that?
There you go.
The Orioles.
There you go. Not quite. Although Cleveland's really good. They've
Plenty
been
of good seats available for the next home.
Sure.
Luke Jones is here. He will be there at the games this weekend. We're going to get into some Ravens. He's been at Ravens all week. We've been monitoring this Braves thing. I'm glad we got to geek out about the Phillies and the Orioles. I get to show my pictures and tell some stories we never get to tell, especially the ones about you and your dad. And you, I've never heard the story of you going to the vet as a little boy. Still have that ticket stub from the Braves game or no?
I'm sure I have it somewhere.
They had these little stubs in Philadelphia, little skinny tickets is what they would do up there. I tell you what, they're going to come down here with big fat cheesesteaks and some pretzels. We're going to play some baseball this weekend. It's going to be fun around here. We've had an incredible week with the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. The Gold Rush Chevins doublers are out. I'll have these at Cooper's for Fleet Week on Friday. Thursday we'll be at Costas next week. We had a great group of folks coming over to Costas to join us, including Jessica Valles. We'll be there for the Orioles-Yankees game before 4 o'clock. And then on the 25th, we will be at Pappas in Glen Burnie. All of it brought to you by our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions. This is my water in my cup. They keep it clean around here, well water, making things happen. I'm going to bring Doug on the program. We're going to talk about Liberty Pure Solutions. I'm actually wearing my Liberty Pure Solutions stuff in the 25th anniversary documentary brought to you by Curio Wellness and Far and Daughter when I interviewed Vinny Testaverde on the radio road down in Miami. So I get my Liberty Pure hat back out this weekend for that. Our friends at Jiffy Lube Multi-Care, always keeping it, even for these people in Philadelphia, they come down here, they got to get their oil changed. Jiffy Lube will take care of that. Jiffy Lube Multi-Care. Phillies in town all weekend. Then we get up to New York next week. Got a lot going on here, man. This is as exciting a Father's Day weekend, especially if you don't love golf, as we can have around here. Father's Day weekend, pennant race, Yankees ahead. We got a real baseball team in this town, something I've waited my whole life for. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Orioles baseball and the Philly Fanatic at Baltimore Positive.